Yo guys, what's going on? Tenebris here. Welcome back to another video, and today's video is going to be talking about combos in PvP and how they work. I'm going to be going into in-depth analysis of how it basically occurs, where you can hit your opponent and your opponent can't hit you. In this video, I'm going to be using Microsoft Paint. Okay, relax, okay? Everyone like flipped out in the last video, where I said paint.net, but it was Microsoft Paint. Anyways, yeah, I'll be using Microsoft Paint to show you guys exactly what I'm talking about, because it's much easier to visualize it than just explain it. So yeah, let's get right into it. Alright guys, we are now in Paint, and here you can see a basic setup where you have player 1's hitbox and player 2's hitbox. These players are on a flat ground. They have to be on a flat ground, otherwise this particular setup does not work. And the red line is approximately 3 blocks. So this is like basically your reach distance, which is of course calculated from eye level on both players. So both players can hit each other at this point. And in this particular scenario, this red line is the same distance between player 1 and player 2, and player 2 and player 1. There's actually 2 red lines here, one coming out of each player. If it's the same distance, you get a fight that is basically a straight line. Those fights where you just straight line each other and trade hits exactly is what this is. So that's pretty much how straight line fights occur. So now I'm going to be talking about how combos occur. So combos can occur in one of 2 ways. The first way is that a player completely misses a hit. So in a 3-dimensional plane, they just completely avoid the hitbox and the other person gets a hit. The second way is the vector coming out of the player's hitbox would deviate farther from 0 than the other players. So at 0, the reach distance is exactly 3 blocks between player 1 and player 2, and this is basically aiming at the head on flat ground, exactly 3 blocks. As soon as you look down, you start missing more hits because your reach distance is slightly less. So for example, if you look down this much, reach distance might actually be a little less than up here. And if player 2 still looks straight ahead while player 1 looks down, or even if player 1 looks a little up, you have to be looking straight ahead. If player 1 looks a little up, player 2 is going to get that hit before, and that's pretty much the instigator of combos. It's the first hit, and I'm going to talk about what happens after that in a second. So now what happens when player 2 can hit player 1, but player 1 can't hit player 2 yet? So what happens is player 2 will give player 1 a certain percentage of horizontal and vertical knockback upon attack, and ping is very important in this, especially with the next value. So not only do you give your opponent knockback, but your movement is now multiplied by a decimal, and I'm going to talk about this in a different video. But your movement is going to be multiplied by 0.6 when you hit the opponent, which basically will slow you down, which allows you to get more hits on your opponent without giving them as much knockback as you'd probably expect. So it's multiplied by 0.6 every time you attack your opponent, which slows you down. So basically, when you're hitting your opponent and they can't hit you and they're up here, basically, you're able to go from here, which I'll show you in 1 second. You're basically able to go from here, I'm going to draw this in pencil, from here to here in 0.6 of the time that you're usually able to do. Okay, so this is essentially the setup of a combo on the first hit. So player 1 has taken this much vertical knockback. So it's taken about this much vertical knockback. I'm gonna say that's about half a block, but that number doesn't really matter unless you're actually trying to calculate it. And they've also taken, let's say, this much back. Okay, so it's not going to be perfect, but that's pretty much what they've taken. Now, player 2 has also slowed down significantly. So player 2 actually has traveled a lot slower than actual sprinting speed while going this way towards player 1. Which basically it means that if this value of horizontal knockback is equivalent to this value of how slow they go, the player 1 will stay in the air indefinitely. If the horizontal knockback rate exceeds the value that the player is slowed down by, which is different on many servers, but like the default value is 0.6. If this value exceeds this, then player 1 will be knocked out of player 2's range, and player 2 will lose the combo. Now, however, if the horizontal knockback is less than this value. So if this value exceeds this value, what happens is the player 2 will be slowed down too much, and player 1 will not be knocked out of the combo directly from the hits, but player 2 will lose the combo. So these values have to be as close as possible in order for it to be effective. So you might say, oh, well, if the player is being hit back and player 2 is keeping them in the air, what is preventing player 1 from just going like this and attacking player 2 back? And that is the main point of this video, and that's basically explaining that this is where the reach is calculated from. So if the reach is calculated from the head, the vector at 3 blocks will not be able to reach player 2 at any point on the body. So because it's calculated from the head, so if you look at this angle, you miss the player up here. If you look at that angle, you miss the player there. If you look at this angle, you basically miss the player. The best angle to get out of the combo is look at the very top of their head, because that's the shortest distance. But any farther down, if you try to look at the player's hip, like middle of the head, it won't work. You actually have to look at the very top of the head. And that's the shortest value from your hitbox to the other player if you're in the air. And it may be a little bit, like, I think the farther up you go, the more you have to look down. I'm just guessing about that. If I'm wrong, correct me in the comment section, in order to break the combo. But that's essentially how combo breaking works in Minecraft. So I'm going to get rid of these really quick. And yeah, the final thing I want to talk about is how you keep them in the air. So this is on the first hit, but every sequential hit, the vertical velocity is actually halved. I'm pretty sure on the first hit, the vertical velocity is a certain number, and then every hit afterwards is half of the vertical velocity. I believe someone told me that a while ago. A dev actually told me that, so I'm likely to believe them, but I'm not exactly sure. If I'm wrong about that, correct me. But if I'm right about that, you have to, on the first hit, you hit the player once, and then you might be able to hit the player another time, right? But if you're not in that sweet spot, you will not be able to continuously hit the player up and up and up. And then, of course, the player obeys the laws of gravity. The player falls down. You need to hit the player back up again. The player falls down. You got to hit them up again. And you have to basically keep them in a in the air. Now, if player 1's average vertical movement is 0 and they only go horizontal, player 2 theoretically could keep them in the air indefinitely. However, once again, the backwards movement of player 1 has to be equivalent to the percentage that player 2 has slowed down, and the vertical movement of player 1 has to be equivalent to how far they fall in Minecraft gravity, which I don't even know what the value is, but I'll probably research it later. So if they have a horizontal, they basically stay in the air indefinitely. Now, however, if their total movement is actually up like this, they will actually be knocked out of the combo because they'll just be knocked up and out. And if their total movement goes like this, they're going to be knocked to the ground, which will basically knock them out of the combo as well. So the closer their total movement is to 0 on the horizontal axis, the longer you can keep them in the combo for. So that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you all for watching, and if you have any comments or questions about this, just comment them down below, and I hope to generate a fair bit of discussion about this, and I'll see you all next time. Peace out.